Hello there. Once again, the taxpayer coughs up and the bankers take advantage. Firstly, as ever, please kick that YouTube algorithm up the jacksie by giving this video a big fat like. And I'm always uploading new content, so thank you for passing by, and please do check my YouTube channel daily. So once again, we're finding out the true nature of our banking industry. They won't let any crisis pass by without availing themselves of the opportunity to bail themselves out at taxpayer expense and make a healthy profit in the process. And I want everyone to bear in mind that all bailouts eventually do benefit the banks, because at the end of the day, the money always ends up being channeled through their grimy hands. And all they have to do is make sure there's some interest to be creamed off the top, or some commission to be charged somewhere, and Bob's your uncle. Now, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, has put in place a huge business and wage bailout scheme, or more accurately, a set of schemes, designed to transfer an unparalleled amount of public dosh into the pockets of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of businesses and those of millions of people. And this mass giveaway of money will pile hundreds of billions of more debt onto the country, on top of the 1.8 trillion quid we already owed. But already the Daily Mail reports that it has been inundated with complaints from business owners who claim that banks are taking advantage of the situation. The Mail reports that Britain's greedy banks are threatening the future of up to 1 million crisis-hit firms who could go bust in the next month after being refused one of the government's business bailout loans. Victims have told Mail Online the Treasury's approved lenders are taking advantage of the crisis and offering interest rates of between 7 and 30% on emergency loans, even though the current UK base rate is now at 0.1%. Now let's get this straight. Banks are not charities, and we all get that. But do most people not realise how absolutely ruthless they really are? To make a buck in that industry, you have to be capable of bankrupting pensioners, and willing to do it too. So screwing a few business owners will come very easy to them. Also consider that the banks do not hire social workers. But they do train their people in how to appear the part while working out how to get you to buy their mortgages, insurances and investment packages. And the further up the finance industry you get, the more ruthless you have to be to make the grade. Why do you think the City of London is so successful? Because it's full of Mother Teresas handing out free stuff? No. Always remember that the favoured charities of bankers are their shareholders and fee earners. So it should come as no surprise at all when the Mail says, irate business owners claim they are being stitched up, and one told Mail Online today, banks being the gatekeepers of this scheme is like putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank. And another, fearing for his future, said, Britain's banks are an absolute disgrace. I contacted them over 9 days ago without any reply. Now, to be fair, it's being claimed on the business side that the structure of this new loan system is too complex and bureaucratic. And Bloomberg reports that 5 lenders have temporarily withdrawn from the Business Interruption Loan Scheme, or CBILS, while they either try to process the applications they already have, or because they lack sufficient capital to continue in the scheme and are diverting enquiries elsewhere. And the scheme, they say, was only started less than a fortnight ago on March the 23rd. And banks are not geared up to overnight become the benefits offices for businesses and their owners. But these business excuses do not explain why banks, are reportedly rejecting CBILS applications from business customers who have cash in the bank and trying to get them to opt for a more expensive commercial loan instead and put their property up as security too. That sort of arrangement earns brokers big bucks, and it's also called profiteering. Had Parliament still been sitting, I would expect them to have been pushing through emergency legislation right now to set up either a new temporary body or empower an arm of the Financial Ombudsman Service with the powers to impose crippling fines or worse on any banks or its employees engaged in any such activity. Because right now, those banks and their employees are enriching themselves while potentially destroying the heart of our economy. But that also means that some banks are prepared to kill their own golden geese in the bargain. Why? As the Corporate Finance Network of Accountants has reported, that research shows that 18% of their SME clients were likely to go bust within weeks, and 32% within months. That could amount to 4 million job losses next month and 42% of small businesses failing. So where would those bankers engaged in money grabbing right now get their future business? Or is it a case of get rich now just in case and bail out as soon as pos? Talk about short-termism if that's true. I just hope that the words of the Business Secretary Alok Sharma on this very subject at last night's press conference gets through to those at the top of the banking industry. The Chancellor, together with the Bank of England and Financial Conduct Authority, he said, wrote to the chief executives of the UK banks to urge them to make sure that the benefits of the loan scheme are passed through to businesses and consumers. And it would be completely unacceptable if any banks were unfairly refusing funds to good businesses in financial difficulty. Just as the taxpayer stepped in to help the banks back in 2008, we will work with the banks to do everything they can to repay that favour and support the businesses and people of the United Kingdom in their time of need. But that sounds to me like a bit of toothless finger-wagging at the moment, asking for the financial services industry to be nice and do the right thing. But this is bankers we're talking about here. Bankers! And yes, that word does start with a B, although many would beg to differ. But one big message that does need to get through is that small businesses don't want loans right now. Loans that need to be repaid out of undefined future income. They need grants. If the government doesn't step in and step in hard and fast right now, millions of British small businesses face shutting up shop for good. British Chancellor Rishi Sunak has just a few weeks to save UK small businesses from extinction and sending the unemployment rates to their highest ever levels. It seems like only yesterday that the Chancellor stood before the nation overusing the word unprecedented at every given opportunity to give the impression that his intervention in shoring up the banking confidence by proxy via business support would provide security for the economy and for businesses and business owners themselves. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm not sure how banks offering secured loans to businesses that have had their profits slashed to zero with little to no prospect of regaining footing is supposed to provide security. Ah, but employees' wages will be paid by the government, I hear you cry. Well, that's hardly helpful when the many costs excluded in Rishi Sunak's banking bolstering budget start mounting up. And also when small business owners find themselves paying their workforce but unable to pay themselves, all because they pull down their own wages legitimately via dividends, something which is not covered by the Chancellor's mechanisms. It doesn't matter how many billions and trillions the Chancellor pulls out of the hat, if it doesn't get through the banking bottleneck and into the businesses and people that need it, then the whole thing becomes a very shallow tokenistic gesture in order to appear to be seen to act and to have taken measures that insulate businesses from the lockdown, when in fact nothing of the sort has actually taken place. It feels like 12 years ago all over again, when a Labour Chancellor and PM Gordon Brown, with his own overused word, prudence, threw money at the banks only for the taxpayer to pick up the tab later, and then for the country to move into austerity mode for over a decade. And even Brown himself was planning for that very austerity to take place had Labour won the 2010 general election. Oh yes. It makes you wonder where the cuts will be made at the end of all of this and whose taxes will have to go up. And I reckon it will be all taxes across the board. Whether or not you claimed or benefited from this state aid, it will all be socialised by the Tories. And you think the sweetheart tax deals for mega business are good now? Just wait and see. After all, the politicians will claim, those huge businesses have the capacity to employ so many people, and those banks will oil the wheels of our economic recovery, so we have to look after them, don't we? Now, some have likened this situation to a major conflict. And if this were a major conflict, many billions of pounds would be spewed out of the business ends of artillery pieces and torpedo tubes and down the sights of bomb aimers, and many more billions worth of damage would ensue. Maybe now is the time to launch the helicopters with that money on board and drop it on the ordinary people to directly bail them out, in the form of a temporary, universal basic income. Anyway, if you want to hear more from me, please don't forget to subscribe and also press that little bell, or you won't get any notifications. And if you want to see more of me, buy a mug with my mug on it. So, what do you think about all this bailing out? Please share and comment, and thank you for watching.